Adisa and Nia lived alone in a small hut at the edge of their village. Their parents had died when they were very young, leaving them to fend for themselves. To survive, they sold vegetables and herbs at the village market. Every morning, they woke up early, gathered fresh produce from their small farm, and carried them in baskets to sell. One afternoon, Adisa went deep into the forest to pluck some herbs. She knew the best places to find rare leaves that fetched good prices at the market. As she moved through the thick undergrowth, she suddenly noticed something unusual between a cluster of green leaves. It was a golden calabash, glowing softly under the sunlight. Her breath caught in her throat. She bent down and picked it up. The calabash was smooth and warm, covered in strange markings that seemed to shift as she touched them. She had heard stories about such things, about spirits and their gifts, but she had never believed those stories. She turned the calabash in her hands and whispered, "What are you?" The markings pulsed faintly, a strange energy running through her fingers and making her shiver. She looked around to see if anyone was watching, and then she tucked it into her basket. That evening, as Nia prepared their dinner, Adisa sat on the floor of their hut, staring at the calabash. She couldn't stop thinking about it. "What are you looking at?" Nia asked as she stirred a pot of soup. "Nothing," Adisa replied quickly, hiding the calabash. Nia frowned, but didn't press further. She was used to her sister keeping secrets. Later that night, when Nia was asleep, Adisa took the calabash out again, her hands trembling as she whispered to it, "Give me money." A soft hum filled the room. The calabash grew warm in her hands, and then before her very eyes, gold coins spilled out of it. Adisa gasped. She reached out, touching the coins to make sure they were real. They felt solid, heavy, and rich. Her heart pounded with excitement. The next morning, she hid the gold under her mattress and went to the market as usual. But unlike before, she no longer cared about selling vegetables. All she could think about was the calabash. That night, she whispered to it again, "Give me money," and the calabash obeyed. Within weeks, Adisa became the richest person in the village. She no longer needed to sell vegetables. Instead, she bought the finest clothes, expensive jewelry, and built the largest hut in the village. The people whispered about her sudden wealth. Some envied her, others were suspicious. Nia was the only person who felt uneasy. One evening, she confronted her sister. "Adisa, where is all this money coming from?" Adisa smirked, tossing a gold coin in the air. "Why do you care? We are no longer struggling, are we?" "But this is not natural," Nia insisted. "People don't just become rich overnight. What did you do? Where did you get all this money from?" Adisa rolled her eyes. "You won't understand," she said. Nia kept on pressurizing her. "Please tell me the truth." Adisa sighed and walked over to her bed. She pulled out the calabash and placed it between them. "This is how." Nia's eyes widened. "Is that—" "Yes," Adisa interrupted. "Yes, it is the golden calabash." Nia's hands trembled as she reached out, but stopped short. "Adisa, do you know what this is? The elders say it is cursed." Adisa laughed. "Cursed? That's just an old woman's tale. Look at me. Do I look cursed?" But Nia wasn't convinced. She felt the strange energy of the calabash. Something just didn't feel right. Very soon, strange things began to happen. One night, the villagers heard a loud cry coming from the forest. The next morning, a child from the village was missing. The villagers searched everywhere, but the child was never found. A few days later, the crops in the fields began to wither. The once green plants turned brown and dry, even though the rains had come. The villagers grew worried. They went to the village elder, Mama Abena, for help. Mama Abena listened carefully before nodding. Something is wrong. The spirits are angry, and we have to find out why. One night, while Adisa was away, Nia searched the hut. Under Adisa's bed, she found the golden calabash. She looked at it, touched it, and felt its strange energy. The markings glowed faintly. She put it back and ran to Mama Abena and told her everything. Mama Abena twisted her face in worry. The calabash demands a sacrifice every full moon, she said. If it is not given, the village suffers. Nia's heart pounded. How do we stop it, Mama? She asked. It must be returned to the forest shrine before the next full moon. Otherwise, the spirits will take a much greater sacrifice. Nia swallowed hard. She knew Adisa wouldn't give up the calabash easily. That night, Nia begged her sister, "Please, Adisa, we have to return the calabash. People are suffering." Adisa scoffed. "You're just jealous." "Jealous? Adisa, this thing is evil." Adisa's eyes flashed with anger. "I won't give it up. I will never be poor again." Nia had no choice. She and Mama Abena had planned to take the calabash while Adisa slept. But as Nia reached for it, Adisa woke up. "What are you doing?" she screamed, lunging at her sister. They fought, knocking over furniture, their shouts filling the hut. Finally, Nia managed to pull the calabash away, but as she did, it slipped from her hands and crashed to the ground. The calabash cracked open, a blinding light filling the hut. A deep voice rumbled, shaking the walls. "You have abused our gifts," the spirit said. "For your greed, you shall be punished." Adisa screamed as the light wrapped around her, seeping into her skin. She fell to the ground, clutching her face in agony. When the light faded, she was trembling, and then before their very eyes, her beauty vanished. Boils and sores covered her once flawless skin. Her hair fell out in clumps, and her eyes lost their shine. She screamed and ran out of the hut, stumbling like a mad woman. The next morning, the villagers found her sitting at the corner of the street and muttering what no one knew. Little children passed by, pointing and laughing. Some threw stones, but she didn't react. She just sat there, scratching her sores and muttering to herself. Nia stood at a distance, her heart broken. Despite everything, she still loved her sister. Every day, she brought food and placed it beside Adisa. Adisa never recognized her, but she always grabbed the food and ate hungrily, stuffing it into her mouth. Golden calabash lay broken. Mama Abena picked up the pieces and returned it to the forest shrine. Nia and Mama Abena made the journey deep into the forest. When they placed the pieces on the altar, the spirits appeared once more. "You have done well," they said. "The curse is lifted, but let this be a lesson. Greed brings only suffering." When they returned, the village began to heal. The missing child was found, and the crops flourished again. But Adisa remained at the street corner, forever lost in her madness. Every day, Nia still brought her food. The village never spoke of the golden calabash again, but the story remained a warning about greed and a reminder that no amount of wealth was worth losing one's soul.